Hello everybody, and welcome to a video where I'm going to be discussing some of my worries about Magic the Gathering based on, for the Crimson Vow draft format, the experience that it provided. But before I get to that, remember to hit the like button if you do enjoy this sort of video and want to see more of my just like thoughts type videos. Comment with your questions, your thoughts on this topic after you hear what I have to say, and then you can subscribe for more draft content. Basically, I wanted to make this video because I was looking back through my draft guide for Crimson Vow as like I was considering making a video where I went through the draft guide and like talked about the stuff I learned and how I would make the draft guide slightly different in the future if I had all the information I had now when I actually made it. And I was going through the mechanics section of the slide and I realized that this is the set I think that has the least creative mechanics that I've ever played in, and I'm worried that some of the design time and energy that maybe would have been dedicated towards this sort of set, the main set, was actually siphoned off towards alchemy, or maybe they took some of their designers off of this like the normal standard level sets and put them towards alchemy. And that worries me a little bit because I don't really play constructed a lot, and I would much rather they just I would really like it if they nailed the main set. There's also just, it feels like at this point there's like a formula that they're following, and they have been for some time. And when the mechanics don't cause you to prioritize cards differently, the formula of the set really just feels, you can feel the formula coming through. And that worries me as well. Just going through the mechanics in this set. First of all, an example of like a great mechanic, in my opinion, is the mutate mechanic. That mechanic was very unique. It changed the way you played the game. You cared about getting cards that you could mutate onto, and you cared about getting mutate creatures. You could form these cool stacks of mutate creatures. This is an Ikoria mechanic for those who didn't play. But basically, you would turn one creature of yours into a super creature by continuing to add cards to the stack of mutate cards, and you would get more mutate triggers as you did that. And that was a really unique, powerful, fun mechanic. Powerful, maybe in air quotes. I thought it was powerful, and I thought it was a really cool mechanic, and I felt like it was always a ton of fun to play around. And it gave you a lot of design space, a lot of build around space. Whereas if you're looking at the set Crimson Vow, the mechanics were training, there was cleave, there was exploit, there was day and night, and there was disturb. Like there were a lot of mechanics, but none of them really felt creative to me, and a lot of them actually felt like the opposite of creative. Like it felt like the bare minimum effort needed to come up with mechanics, which I really don't want to be. Like, I'm not really an inherently negative person, I wouldn't say. Like, but I really want to be honest as well, and I don't want to just sugarcoat everything just in the sake of sending positivity out. Cleave may be the worst mechanic I've ever seen. I've been playing for quite a while, and Cleave was probably, it felt like they were like, well, we need another mechanic. What can we do? And they were like, well, we don't want to put kicker into the set because people are always saying, oh, every mechanic's a secretly kicker, which I don't think that's really true. There's a lot of differences in mechanics. But cleave is actually just kicker, because kicker is you pay extra mana and you get an extra effect. And cleave is you pay extra mana and you remove a negative effect. And subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. But the way they implemented cleave with the subtraction thing is also just the most clunkily worded, hard to understand sometimes way of doing that sort of effect. And cleave as a mechanic really bugged me. It just wasn't, it also wasn't fun to play. Like you could have a set that had like 10 mechanics in it, but if none of them are fun or interesting or unique, then it doesn't really matter because they just don't add anything to the gameplay experience. It's kind of like in Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, how there was technically like the dice rolling mechanic, but that doesn't really, it didn't really change your gameplay experience. There wasn't like cards that you kind of had to have dice rolling payoffs to put in your deck, really. There wasn't like a card that was like, if you roll a 1 through 5, you take 10 damage, but if you roll a 5 through 20, you like deal 5 damage to all your opponent's creatures, or things like that. There wasn't a card that was like, well, I'm building my dice rolling deck around it, which maybe was just a flaw in the dice rolling design there. Sorry, my camera phased out a second there. But there wasn't really the mechanic ended up just being like, well, you play your card and then this happens, and this is how it ends up going. It wasn't like a huge decision based like mechanic or things like that. I thought that in Midnight Hunt there was some interesting mechanics. I thought Coven was kind of a cool, like, there's like some thought that goes into that design. It's like, well, what would like a coven of like witches, how would that mechanic be reflected? It's like, well, if your creatures are slightly different, if they have their own differences, they combine, then it makes your creature, your coven creature better. I thought that was an interesting design. Disturb tokens, I mean, not disturb, decayed tokens were also in a kind of interesting space, like a token that goes away. That was like a cool thing, even though I didn't really play Midnight Hunt a ton. That wasn't because of the mechanics. That was more so because of the balance, and also because the set wasn't around as long. But like the mechanics themselves were more interesting, I think. And just with Crimson Vow, like, so I already talked about how Cleave wasn't super creative. Blood tokens are like, again, they could have been called anything. They weren't tied thematically to the set. They didn't make the set feel unique. They just made the set feel like, well, the games are going to be going more smoothly. Their games are going to be like, you just have extra card filtering essentially. You could have called it like a sand token and put it in a desert themed plane, or a wave token and put it in an ocean themed plane. And it just really didn't feel like a unique mechanic that changed the way the game felt. It kind of felt just like you played your card and you got a slight bump in your resources. And like, I don't know, it didn't make the set feel unique and fun. And when the set doesn't feel unique and fun, it just breaks back down into that formula of, well, green is going to get a 6-drop that gains you life. It's going to get 1 fight spell or like punch spell, or a bite spell, I guess, fight or bite spell. Red's going to get 2 removal spells or 3 removal spells, depending on the sizing of them. Black's going to get 3 removal spells in different sizes. White's going to get an enchantment removal spell and another removal spell. Blue's going to get a bounce spell at common, a bounce spell at uncommon, and a couple counter spells and an enchantment removal spell. It was like just going through like a formula, it felt like. And if you're building a set kind of like that, it feels like almost like anyone could do that sort of design, which is like kind of not the best feeling. Yeah, and then just the other mechanics in the set. There was Exploit, which was a returning mechanic. Didn't feel super unique to me. I don't know. Day and Night didn't really feel like it played a huge factor. Though the werewolves were better in this set, which, yay, that was nice. The werewolves actually did some stuff. But Day and Night, again, I think the new version of Day and Night is better, but it's a returning mechanic that was already created for Midnight Hunt. Yeah, there wasn't really tribal synergies to like make the decks more interesting. There weren't really build-arounds to go for. Just kind of felt stale. For reference, the set came out November 11th, and after the end of November, so like November 30th, I played the set 4 times, I think. And that's like 2 months. That's like the first 3 weeks of the format. I played it like a decent amount of times. And some of those drafts were just so that I could try and make it to the draft qualifier for like the event, like the Mythic qualifier event, to like rank up at the end of the season. So I wasn't really even doing those for enjoyment or for content or anything. I just was like, well, I like doing high level draft events, and this is what I have to do. So I think I did 3 drafts or 4 drafts maybe that were just off stream, not recording, just while I was doing other things, maybe even just to try and record. So I think I ended up only making like 16 or maybe 18 draft videos for this set that was out for like 3 months. I only drafted like 4 times after November ended. Yeah, it just wasn't really my jam, I guess. Felt pretty formulaic. The rares kind of ruined a lot of the games for me in terms of I would lose to them or I would win with them, and both of them felt kind of bad. Where it's like, well, my play skill meant nothing here because I just played a card that my opponent had no chance of beating ever. Or my play skill didn't matter because my opponent played a card that I had no chance of beating ever, which just wasn't super satisfying. Training was another mechanic in the set that really whiffed. I think the cards they made with training felt like they were afraid of making them too snowbally, but the mechanic itself means that like you play your card with training and you're kind of excited to use it, but then you have to wait like 2 more turns to use it if everything goes perfectly, because the cards like training is such a like slow, clunky mechanic. It's tough. Obviously designing a set is difficult, but I'm really hoping that this was just like a one-time thing and that they kind of bounce back. I'm just worried a little bit. As I said, they did release like a whole new format with like a bunch of digital only designs, and obviously they designed them far in advance. So I'm hoping that they didn't just spend all their design time making those and not actually care about the set. Like Cleve felt like such a phoned in mechanic, a bunch of returning mechanics, and just following a formula for cards just really worries me. The fact that I could probably predict like generally effects for like I made a video before the set came out where I talked about what goes into a Magic set. They called it like set format breakdown, and that was another partial inspiration for this video because someone mentioned that video in a comment. In a comment on one of my other videos, and I was like, well, what did I say in that video again? And then I was like going through. I was like, yep, they're gonna have 3 2-drops in every color. They're gonna have 1 bounce spell. They're gonna have 1 enchantment removal spell in blue. They're gonna have an enchantment removal spell in white. Another removal spell in white that's more conditional. Top like 2 black removal spells, 2 red removal spells, or 2 or 3. Or a green bite spell, big green creature. Just it feels like the sets just lack something if they don't have that like uniqueness to them. And I'm hoping that they can bounce back. I'm hoping that this isn't just a trend going forward. It definitely impacts my enjoyment of the game when the sets are like this. I felt like also flavor does matter to me a little bit. And I feel like going back to Innistrad is always... I was actually really excited when I heard they were going back to Innistrad. And then I feel like it was just the most generic stuff ever. And I didn't really feel like a sense of like the flavor of it or anything. Like the way I did when Shadows of Innistrad and Eldritch Moon came out. Those ones felt like pretty flavorful in terms of what was happening on the plane. And this one just kind of felt a little bit lackluster in that way. But yeah, just a little bit of a, I guess... Not just me kind of expressing some of my concerns. Maybe you have some of the same ones. Maybe these are some thoughts you hadn't considered before. Again, I don't really, not really trying to be like negative. I'm just trying to be honest. And I feel like these are things that I'm hoping are addressed going forward at least. And definitely also kind of wanted to explain why I stopped playing Crimson Vow like so early in the format. Usually I like stop playing like a week and a half before. But I stopped playing, like I officially announced stopping playing the format like a month before the new set came out, and I like actually had stopped playing like a month before that even. So just sharing my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed the video, folks. That's gonna do it for my thoughts, I guess. But yeah, I'm probably gonna try making more of these videos going forward, just like things where I just share my thoughts on stuff. Not all gonna be worries, of course, because only sharing your worries isn't as fun as sharing some of your things you're optimistic about and things like that. But yeah, I hope you liked this video. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. If you would like to let me know you made it all the way to the end of the video, in the comment section down below, you can leave a creative hashtag that will let me know. Maybe something like hashtag design flaw or hashtag hoping for a better future or something like that. If you are interested in supporting my content and you're enjoying my videos, you can find a link to the Patreon in the description. Patreon is a great way to help me continue to make videos. It's a couple bucks a month, and you gain access to some cool rewards and bonus content, and you help me make these videos, which it's like sponsoring my content directly, which is pretty cool. And I appreciate, like, there's over 100 people who are patrons, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you for that. You can also find a link to the NicolaiBolas Discord server, where you can talk about all things Magic with me and other members of the community. You can find a link to my articles in the description. I'll link to the NicolaiBolas Twitter, the NicolaiBolas Twitch stream, all that stuff in the description. Also the NicolaiBolas merch store if you're interested in merchandise, which is kind of neat. I've designed some. And then, yeah, that's going to do it for this one, though. I hope you enjoyed the video. A little bit more serious tone than I normally go for, but I felt like I wanted to share a little bit. So, yeah, that's going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you next time.